Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Afghanistan by Afghans. But hello to you as well, since you kind of raised your hand. Uh,
Hi.
today's guest, as who has already raised his hand and said hello to all of us, is Safi Aryan. He's a photographer and now getting into videography as well. Has been doing some great photos. That's kind of what caught my eye initially. Just beautiful photos. And he lives in the LA area as well. And we're going to get to know yet another amazing Afghan and their story and their life journey. So I'm very excited for this conversation. And before we started, I think Safi Jan said that he is excited about this interview because men don't get asked about their feelings as much and thoughts about their lives, right? Is that what you said? You said about our
Yes.
feelings?
It serendipitously came up. I wasn't guiding the conversation that way, but um, I think in today's society and in our culture, men don't talk a lot about intimate and deep things. And a lot of females are photographers. I'm a male photographer. And in the Western world, there's a lot of male photographers, vloggers and travelers and stuff. I don't run into very many Afghan photographers. Very rarely. I think I've only met one. So
Interesting. And why do you think that is?
uh, our culture is in the arts. I think we love music, poetry, and I'm more American now than I am Afghan, which I am not very proud of, but it's what it is. Through my growing up process and immigrating here, I was 9 years old. I haven't met a male role model in the Afghan space that wants to talk about our feelings or in the male atmosphere in general. We're usually such hard workers, just want to get to the ground and start working. I I don't see that very often. Maybe it's just my experience.
Wow, no, man, we just gonna have a great conversation. I feel like we just started off, but
Thank you.
to kind of layer it on some context, tell us a little bit about your family's journey from Afghanistan to the U.S.
Um,
How old were you, and how was that journey?
well, I think one of the biggest things that got me into making doing photography and video. I am a graduate from CSUN as a marketing and business degree, a bachelor's. But I enjoyed photography and video because my mom has a very emotional and difficult story, and I wanted to make a movie of her life. Uh, I'm not in the position, I'm not good enough right now, in my own opinion, to be able to bring her story to life. I don't think I'm even educated enough to comprehend the intricacies of her story, as well as a male's perspective. From a female's perspective, there's going to be a lot of translation that's going to get lost. And I wanted to educate myself and become the best videographer I could be in order to grasp more of that story. So that's kind of
Mm.
my background. My mom came here, just me and my mom. My biological father is not alive. We came through a very difficult process. We went from Afghanistan to Peshawar in Pakistan. Um, we had a visa, I think, to come to America, so that was our route. Actually, no. And when I say the story, remember, I just want to say that I was only 2 or 3 years old when I left from Afghanistan to Pakistan, to
Mhm.
Peshawar, and then I was 9 years old when I came from Pakistan to America. So I do not have the ability or the memory to say the story correctly, and I might say it fallibly. I might make mistakes. So this is not 100%. So I'll do my best,
You're
but I
not
can do my
legally
best.
bound to this story. You're not legally bound. We're not gonna hold you
Yeah,
accountable.
I hope I don't. I'm not gonna do it justice like my mother does it, but it's just me and my mom in America. They're very difficult, and she sheltered me from everything.
Mm.
In the chaos of everything, my mother was like a impenetrable fortress. I didn't feel the pain, and maybe I felt the isolation of the different culture, but she buttressed me from everything, which is
Mhm.
pretty crazy.
Wow. Even from childhood, right? From, I'm assuming you're talking about from like birth to where you are now.
Yep. From the
Yeah.
whole process, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your childhood growing up in California.
So I went to my first experience, I think was like 2, 3 years ago. Well, I went to the Afghan-American conference,
Okay.
and they were asking us all these kind of questions, like, well, how you feel, what's your experience. I don't talk about myself, and even now I'm pretty nervous talking about myself. Um, I think that my experience in America has been very, very difficult, assimilating and trying to fit in. I feel like I completely abdicated my Afghan roots completely. I had to die in order to be an American, get rid of all traces of my identity to become someone who can make friends in the Western world. And now that it's under the microscope of the political world, where the Afghan females are being, you know, oppressed in Afghanistan by the Taliban, and I'm not educated on the very, very complexities of that political stuff. So I don't want to make a statement, even though I really support women's rights. I just want to say that I'm not an educated person on that. So whatever I say, I hope you guys don't take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, as far as your question goes, is how was my experience? I think that
Yeah,
was my
growing
experience.
up. Yeah, I think, yeah, just growing up, because you brought up a great point about identity, and having to let go of completely who you thought you were to be able to assimilate or feel accepted. Um, that is a common experience among Afghans and other people who kind of move countries and go from one culture to the other, um, especially from cultures that aren't really popular and as accepted. It's like, let's say if you come from Europe, you will be a little bit more probably accepted because there's a lot of similarities. But coming from Afghanistan, I want to dig into that a little bit further. Kind of when you say you were shedding all of your Afghan identity, what were you shedding? Like, what aspects of you were you letting go, and what were you taking on instead?
I'll try to make it concise, and then maybe you can pick which way we go. I shed the taboo sexual aspects of the Muslim culture. I shed the prayer. I shed the pride. I shedded. I let go of talking, the clothing, um, the vernacular. How we speak a little bit backwards. We speak like we even read it the opposite way. But I let go of the ideologies, a lot of the ideologies that I had that sometimes would even get me in trouble. But now I am more Western. So I don't have the same ideas of the male representation. I
Hmm.
think man is different in my idea than what it was when I came here. I thought men were different. I thought women were different. Now I see them differently. I hope to see them more equal. But I know I still have biases
Hmm.
that I need to confront to see them more equal. Sometimes it just happens subconsciously that you need to check yourself. So that's what I'm referring to.
Hmm.
But just those things, and they're very deep. Like it would take me a long time to explain everything, but and I would go on a tangent. But those things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, each culture kind of carries with it a set of um, great cultural elements and not so great ones. And it looks like the one, for example, about the how one views women and equality of men and women is something you kind of shed. You didn't want to kind of carry that element of looking at women as unequal to yourself, yeah, which you thought was part of that culture. Interesting.
Yes.
Um, yeah, there's that. And what did you ever feel, eh, eh, that you had to shed those cultural elements away, or was it kind of forced upon you, or you just chose, you know what, I don't want to identify with X, Y, and Z?
Everything that I've been through was very with a lot of friction and contention. It was never, oh wow, I learned something because someone told me. I had to really hit my head on the wall and say that really hurt.
Mm,
Um, in school and higher education, intercultural communication classes, group communication classes, philosophy, psychology, and YouTube. Also, meeting very open minded, culturally diverse individuals from all over the world
mm-hmm,
at school in my life showed how little of understanding I had for the like how different we are, and my understanding of it is still little, but how little it was back then was a shame. Because I remember in class, in my intercultural communication class in CSUN, you know, the professor walks into the class and says, "Oh, what do you think about Safi when you go to your car in the middle of the night?" And I said, "Well, I think about burritos because it's 8 o'clock and I'm hungry and I want to eat." And then the professor asks the female student next to me, "What do you think about when you go to your car?" And he's like, "Oh, to not get raped or attacked." And I'm very, very hyper aware of behind me and my surroundings. For some reason, maybe at that age, you should have already known that. Like, yeah, women are definitely more susceptible to getting injured. But I don't know why in that classroom, when I walked away that very day in the middle of the night, I thought about that more profoundly. It hit me a little harder than most people would have. Maybe my maturity wasn't uh, to that level of most people. So I just kind of, I don't know why I remember that. That felt very important to me.
eye-opening, perhaps,
Yeah.
to kind of see what the other gender has to go through. Oh, that's very interesting. When you kind of, we're kind of diving into this whole concept of identity and manhood. How did you see manhood and being a man, uh, from, because you were a kid, for the first 9 years, and then how has that changed now? How do you, or maybe, now that in your late 20s, how has that, your view of what it means to be a man, or what it means to be an Afghan or Afghan American man, has changed? Where are you now? Where has it developed to?
My idea of manhood is constantly changing. I still think and see myself as a kid. I'm very small in size. I'm 5'4". My mom is very little. I've always been surrounded by very big friends, very masculine, gravitas, strong men in my life, tall, 6'5", 6'6", basketball, all kinds of men, gentlemen, sweet men, tough men, angry men. Um, and my idea of manhood, I never critically thought about it when I was younger. So I can't say that I walked around. I guess that's the answer. I was ignorant, and now I'm aware of my ignorance.
What were you ignorant about?
What is? I never asked the question. I just walked around with my eyes shut and my ears closed. And I think somewhere in the Quran it says, "Those whose eyes are shut, those whose mouth are sewn, or those whose ears are closed, I won't give them the information." And I know that's way off, but yeah, those all aspects of that growing up, even in my teenage years, were completely unused. I should have critically thought more profoundly.
Hmm.
So it's the ignorance aspect, being aware that I don't know of what I don't know
Hmm.
before I just didn't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And do you think, of course, a lot of that might have been influenced not having a male figure in your life, perhaps?
I noticed that not having a male figure in my life, I don't understand business very well. I don't know if that comes from the father. In our culture, they're the breadwinners. My mother is a born and raised Afghan woman that came here with a hijab. Um, you know, so maybe in that aspect, I had a very difficult time handling my assets, my money. I had a very difficult time establishing my dominance. I had a very difficult time being overly sensitive. I had a difficult time uh, standing up for myself and saying no when someone says to do something and I felt anxious. I would just do it because I was afraid of confrontation.
mm,
And I wish many times that if I could go back, I could have stood the line, painted the line in the sand, and said, no, don't talk to me that way. I don't want to be spoken to this way. I do not want to do that. I do not want to go there. That's not something I want to do. I do not agree to those plans. And then have a smile on my face without it making me super anxious or awkward and losing friends.
mm.
So I think that if I had a male figure in my life, I could tell my friend, hey, I don't like that idea. Maybe the next one. And now we're equal footing in the relationship. Before I would just let things go and resentment would build up, and then I would explode. And now I have this terrible uh, guilt, anger's remorse, right?
Mm,
You wait, you wait, you wait, you wait until it's so much pressure that you just explode. And
mm,
then people see you like you're crazy. Like, what happened? Like, why did this person get so mad? Well,
mm,
it's because I wish I stood up earlier. Now I had this resentment building up in my chest, this anxiety.
mm,
I wish I would have said something earlier so we could be equals. Now I'm oppressed, and that oppression made me crazy.
mm. Well, you said you're not gonna go that deep in, but those comments, man, you're really digging. You're really digging deep here. We're breaking ground here. um, of course, with somebody who loves the arts, you're like, the photography and such. I kind of want to know a little bit about that aspect of you. Where and when did you begin to get interested in photography and explore that medium?
I think it started off with uh, I grew up on Disney. I grew up on animation. I grew up on movies. I grew up on television where I stayed at home. I was isolated from the world for the most part, or at least when I was assimilating, trying to fit in and conforming to society. I enjoyed that avenue of entertainment. I enjoyed watching anime, a lot of anime, Cartoon Network, and I began to see myself in that underdog, in that Quentin Tarantino film, in all these adventure that I saw in the movies, and I wanted to do that. I felt like I could tell a story,
Mm,
and that made me so happy. So I picked up a camera when I actually, like, maybe 5 6 years ago, I picked up a camera and I just was doing it for fun while going to school. I didn't expect to make money out of it. One day someone said, "That's really good. Can you do it for me? I'll pay you." It was very little amount of money. I said yes. And then the next person asked me, and then the next person asked me, and I graduated, and a career line was open for me to take advantage of. While I'm still very new, I don't think I deserve any accolades. I have a long way to go. I think that that was very lucky, fortunate.
hmm So it kind of sparked out of interest and kind of
Interest.
yeah, visual medium. You said so many things earlier, which I was holding on to kind of ask you a little bit later about. And one was you mentioned this concept of Afghan culture being very heavy on music, and maybe not so much on photography and film because they're a bit technical. You kind of need the advancements to make that film and photography. So I could understand it from that element. Um, Tell me kind of your experiences with different Afghan cultural elements. How did you, was it through music? What else was kind of your connection to Afghan cultural elements, if any?
Um, Language at home was my main connection to my culture.
Hmm.
Food at home would be my main connection to culture. Uh, But I noticed that the grief of our people, and I don't want to get into too much about the war and politics, but leaving Afghanistan and 9/11 and all that stuff. I don't really necessarily want to go that route, but I noticed I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about the war. I don't want to talk about the suffering and the planetary size of the grief. I just don't want to talk about it. It's so
Overwhelming.
It's like you feel like you can't do anything. So now you're just whining. And I hated that. I hated that aspect so much. I don't think that I'm an oppressed individual. I don't think that my race, that my identity has oppressed me. I don't walk around thinking that because I'm Afghan or because that I don't have a father, that, oh, I'm not getting opportunities, I'm not getting a job. In my heart, I believe whoever works hard eventually will get the reward. So I don't agree with people that I'm very stern on that. I don't agree with people that say I'm from Afghanistan, you are privileged, you're white, you're privileged, you're this, you're privileged. I I've been there. I just worked hard, and for some people, luck is when opportunity meets uh, preparation. So I just think I was prepared because I really loved the film. I really loved the arts, and I'm getting opportunities. I'm getting opportunities. It's such a blessing that I'm getting opportunities to work. So when I think about Afghanistan, I think about all this like crying, and I think about all this crying makes me so mad. I noticed that. I noticed crying makes me very angry.
Hmm.
I don't like it. I don't like when people cry. I don't like when people show their emotions in front of me. I don't know what to do. I just feel like this like lack of control, like almost chaos. I think that's what my heritage reminds me of. This unbelievable chaos that's so big that not even the prayer of 3 billion people in the Muslim world is ending its suffering. So it's just hopeless, it's hopelessness, void. So that's what my connection to Afghanistan was.
Mm.
No connection. I wanted to run away from it. Every time it would come into the news, Taliban have taken over Afghanistan, and then all my American friends are, and now this on IG, they start posting it on their story. Somehow they're associating. I just always saw it as a victim mentality, but it's
Mm.
not victim mentality. It's just how I felt. This is how I feel. I'm not putting my perspective on anyone else because I don't agree. Like this is just me. This is how I'm trying to explain how I feel, not how Afghans feel, just as an individual.
Mhm.
So by no means am I putting myself or my ideas on anybody else. I just felt like I had to run away from it. I just felt so grossed out by the idea of like, oh, I'm going to share the bloodshed of my people so you could feel sorry for me, so you can give me an opportunity. That's how I saw it. I was like, until I'm successful, maybe I can have a camera to tell my mom's story. And then maybe in that platform, if people are willing to listen, great. But I just found it so gross, and
Mhm.
I still find it so uh, hard to talk about those things.
Yeah, it's so overwhelming. It's very overwhelming when you talk about 40 years of pain, and what does that to you exactly. It's so overwhelming, and as an individual, you definitely do feel like you can't do anything about it other than complain. Um, this is very interesting because in the last episode we had a mixed Afghan, and she said that one of the things when she was identifying with Afghanistan that she had to do is like that the Afghan identity was interconnected with suffering and pain, and she was having a hard time connecting or experiencing, because she said anytime she had to go into that identity it was all pain. But we're learning and finding out, even through the podcast that I'm doing, that there is, of course, pain is something that was brought on people. It's not that people inherently, Afghans, are sad or miserable or love
No,
misery.
no,
Um,
we're very, yeah.
yeah, we're on the contrary. There's a lot of joy. We want to have a lot of joy and a lot of laughter, and just have the human experience. I don't think any human being out there just wants suffering and misery for 40 years nonstop.
No,
And you have the right to disassociate and kind of be on your own journey, because everybody's on their own journey with identity and how they identify and where how they're growing as a human being. So you have the right to disassociate. It's all good.
I think that that's why I was disassociating, but I find great pleasure and pride in saying I'm Afghan. Like when I tell people I'm Afghan, I
Yeah.
find great joy in it because it's something that I abandoned. I relinquished of all
Mm.
association growing up. Now I see great regret in myself, in my heart, of why I let go so many things. I let go of the reading ability. I could read in, Arabic. I could still talk in Dari, but not as well. So those things sit in my heart with regret. So I start integrating the Muslim culture and the Afghan culture and into my life again. so
Mhm.
uh, when
Right.
I
And
say that I disassociated with it, that was why I disassociated, not that I wanted to.
yeah, yeah, and that was my next connection. Is obviously the reason we're having this interview is that you're reconnecting with that identity, and in one way or the other. And I want to kind of hear a little bit more. How has that journey been for you? What are you reconnecting to? And then I kind of want to know about a little bit about your mom's story and the film that you want to do, because probably that's connected to that. You can't go make a film about your mom without knowing about Afghanistan, right? So
No,
uh,
no.
but first, tell me a little bit about now in this process of reconnecting. What are you reconnecting to?
What am I reconnecting to?
Or
I
what?
want
Mhm.
I want to reconnect to the love. I never dated an Afghan girl. I never had an Afghan community. I wanted to reconnect with my people. I've always had a Western confidant next to me. Never an Afghan community. Never my people. Like I want to find great honor and great bravery and 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 that culture wrapped up around me. Feeling like I have a root because I feel very like in the air all the time. There isn't a moment where I don't feel like I'm in the air. I want my feet to touch the ground and I want to be able to say, this is who I am and this is part of the identity I want to push forward to my kids. So that was a huge thing. A huge thing to me was like, who am I going to get married to? And how am I going to support them and how am I going to raise them and educate them and what am I going to leave out? Another thing that I'm trying to come back to is listening to more people talk about their stories from my country, listening to my mother. Um, that brings me and my mom closer together because I work so much. So it's been very difficult to get a breath, like, and relax because I'm not in that situation right now. I'm not in a situation where I have money coming in constantly. I'm not in a situation where I have a home that's capable of holding a family, even a wife, a girlfriend, whatever. I'm connecting back to the language. I'm connecting back to the clothing. I'm connecting back to the suffering. So that's so much of our identity. The music I listen to sometimes, I don't know any of the artists' names, but I work with Afghan music, like Megan Kabir. Some of those people I work with, I find great joy in sharing their work. Um, but those are the things I'm connecting to.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And when it comes to like retelling your mom's story or telling your mom's story on film, because that was the first thing you started with, I haven't forgotten. I was holding it on because I definitely want to know what you're hoping to achieve with that and how do you want to approach it. Obviously, your photography is great. You do amazing
Thank you.
shots, and you're learning videography and doing it as well. Um, what are you waiting for to or what situations or how long before you tell your mother's story, and what is so special about your mother's story as well, or what aspect of her story do you want to tell? There's so many questions,
Yeah.
but if
Uh,
yeah.
what I want is to be a friend to my mother. Like I've never been a friend to her. I don't know her. Like as much as I love my mom and I hold her so close to me. Um, I'll show you what she looked like really quickly. I'll show you in a second. I don't know if you could see that. That's me and my mom as
Uh-huh.
growing up very little when I came here. I don't know her. You know, this country, not this country. My adult life took that away from me, where I had to go to school. It's not I had to. I chose to go to school. I chose to prioritize those things away from my life, my work, my friends, my adventures, my selfishness. And I don't know my mother. I don't know her pain. I don't even know. I know her story very well compared to someone who doesn't know my mom, but I don't know her. You know, I haven't. I don't spend. I wish I knew her when she was a teenager. I wish I knew her when she was my age. She's not even that old. She just turned 49, August 27th. So like 3 days ago, 2 days ago. So she's still young, and she goes to CSUN. I got her to go to school. Well, she chose to go to school. I don't want to take credit for that, but she's choosing to go to school and learn to write and learn to in English. She's very well spoken in our native tongue.
Mm,
I want to be able to tell her story, so maybe I could see the depth of my mother. Like maybe I could empathize with her, and I don't want her to lie to me. I don't want her to change the story because she's shamed. I know that the story isn't all happiness without mistake, without fault. I know that she had to do things to survive, and I know she doesn't find 100% confidence in sharing that because she's afraid. And I know nobody would judge her. She's such a sweet person. Nobody would judge her, but I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't think I am educated enough. I don't think I know my culture enough. I don't think I'm talented enough to be able to capture the gravity of her story yet. That's why I'm waiting. What I want from it is to connect with my mother. What I hope that it achieves is that it's a core memory, a journey. Like maybe nobody will see it, but I'll be happy with it, and that's cool.
mm. Wow, 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 wow. What a way to end the show, man, with some powerful words. I will have to disagree with you and say that you are enough, you are capable enough, and you
Thank you.
are good enough. You are enough, my brother. You are enough. But yeah, from a skill standpoint, of course, we can all learn and become better filmmakers, better storytellers. That's a different thing. But in terms of being enough, you are enough. You
Thank
are
you so much. You're very kind.
Of course, brother. So this was such a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate.
I wish I got to know you more. I know you're trying to dig into me, so I tried to share as much as I could, but hopefully we can go do something because you
Yeah,
live in the Los
you can
Angeles
ask all
area.
yeah, of course. Then you can ask all the questions you want from me, and I'll
Yes,
go as
I'd love
deep
that.
as we can. But I really appreciate it. So thank you very much, and I'm sure audiences have also enjoyed and appreciated your story with so much
I
honesty
I
and
hope I didn't bring any disrespect or shame to our culture.
no.
I'm just speaking from my own perspective. I don't want a blanket over any of my people. I don't want my words to represent anybody else. I just wanted to share how I felt genuinely. So I hope no one takes offense or thinks
Of
I said something
course.
out of place or something like that.
Not at all, not at all, brother. This was you gave it your heart and your thoughts, and you're honest and authentic. Then there's nothing more we can ask for from you. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it for being on the show, Safi John. And if you guys liked his story, we're gonna put some links to his website and Instagram so you can check out some of his work. And there's, if you like this conversation, there's a few more, almost 30 more at this point, such conversations with other Afghans. So please go ahead and check those out as well. And thank you very much again, Safi John, for being
It
on the
was an
show.
honor to be here. Thank you.
Okay, bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.